It's the last day of this little series that I've been doing where I've been taking my course that I built very quickly and I'm kind of changing it and going back with an accessibility mindset. It's not going to be fully WCAG compliant, but it's also not going to go out to users. It's more of a portfolio piece. So that is good. That's probably one of the things you're thinking about, like, hey, you totally missed the fonts. And while the fonts are a little bit distracting, it's part of the brand and part of the brief. And so I decided to keep those heading text fonts the way that they were. And then only like most of the majority of the body text and things like that, I kept as the pop-ins, which is a more accessible text. So although I am kind of breaking the rules and keeping the text the way it is, I feel that it's best for the project. And this is something, if I was making it AAA standard compliant, then I would most likely change those headings just to make sure that it's very consistent and very clear, very readable. So today I'm going to be talking about focus order, alt text, and storyline accessibility checker. This is probably the hardest thing to think about in regard to accessibility. It's not hard necessarily, but if you don't think about it from the very beginning, then you're left doing a lot of work that you could have just done while you were developing. And so when I think about the focus order, you really want to make sure that all of your focus order is in order the way that you want your screen reader or your learner to be able to consume it. So this is going to be the order that they access that content in your course. So making sure that focus order is cleaned up is going to be really important. And I have found that there's a blog post by Yukon Learning, What is Focus Order in Accessible E-Learning? This is a fantastic resource if you aren't sure about focus order or the correct focus order layout, then this is a really good resource. I will link it here and I'll also link it in that blog post. And the first thing to consider here, this is my first draft, and one of the things that focus order helps with is so that a user can navigate through your course with the keyboard as well and click on all of the appropriate things and be able to access that by only using their keyboard. So if you're in the preview mode of Storyline, you can actually start tabbing through and see that items are highlighted in yellow, which is a focus box to show that a keyboard is able to access that. So I'm able to use this completely without my mouse, and then I can begin. So this slide actually does well. There's times when the focus order is totally crazy and it will not let me even navigate using the keyboard. So making sure that you can always navigate with the keyboard in your courses is going to be really important. So I have to go into the slide, and there's this button here in the home ribbon that's called focus order. If I click directly in here, you'll see that the default focus order just includes everything, and it really has no rhyme or reason. So when I'm thinking about having a screen reader access all of these things, the picture, if I kind of make this dialog box a little bit smaller so that you can see what it's referring to, picture is all the way over here. That's not going to be relevant at all because it's not even on my slide. So that's something that I would make sure to delete or to remove from accessibility. The logo, that one's not even included here either, so I want to make sure that one's gone. The blur in the background, it doesn't do anything for my my content, really. It's just decorative. So you can either write as alternative text decorative, but I feel that that gets a little bit cluttery too. So another option that I do is I just take those items, and you can right click, go to accessibility, and remove that completely from accessibility tools. So all of these things that I might not want to include, I can remove those from my accessibility tools, so then it's not even registering them at all. So let's see what happens in my focus order when I do that. So now there's a few less items here. I still have some items that maybe aren't relevant, so I'd have to make sure I go through and uncheck accessibility on all of these things that aren't meaningful for the content. And this is the part that can get, if you have lots of different shapes or icons and things like that, it can get overwhelming if you wait till the last minute to adjust your focus order. So just something to kind of look at each time you finish a slide or you finish building a slide, is to kind of go back and look that focus order and make sure that everything is in the right place. So this logo, I personally don't think that it is relevant for focus order for keyboard screen readers or anything like that. So I'm going to make sure that it's not included in my accessibility tools. That one's still not showing. So when I want to go in and create custom focus order, and then I also want to make sure that my heading is the first thing that a screen reader is able to see, and then decorative shape, these two, no, I don't need those. So enter your name here is going to be the next thing that I want. I'm going to arrow up, and then your button here, begin rotation. So it's going to be able to access what these things are, and I just need to make sure to remove those decorative shapes. So I can just right click, remove them from accessibility so that they are not accessible to our tools. Now my focus order is cleaned up. I only have my heading, my information on entering your name, and then begin rotation. So that's a way to just clean up your focus order to make sure that your screen reader is going to be able to access the content in the order that you would want them to, and that it also is consistent across all of the slides. So one thing in this article that's something to note is that the way that you do layers is a little bit different than you might expect. And I've had a lot of people kind of ask me how you do layers for focus order. And I found that a lot of people have differing ideas. Maybe there's different ways to do it, but I'm trusting Yukon that they are doing it the right way. So this is the way that I've kind of learned as well. Base layer objects are first. Then you have your base layer button that's on your base layer that then leads to your layer objects. So you kind of bucket all of those layer 1 objects within there. And then you have your next button that's on your base layer, and then all of those layer objects there. And you kind of just hamburger method do that all together, and then your closing buttons at the end. And one thing that I really love, so most of my icons are not included within the focus order or accessibility, or not visible to the accessibility tools. I do like to include images because they do give some context to what's happening on the screen. And so if I add this image back in, I've got this picture, and instead of just creating alternative text from my own understanding, I can also go to accessibility and generate alt text here within Storyline, which is a new option, which I really think is an improvement. So here it's generated very quickly. A person wearing glasses works intently on a laptop with colorful light reflecting in a dimly lit room. So I think that matches pretty well with what I would perceive as that image to be. So I would go ahead and do that with all of my images. And so that's just another really easy way to make sure that you're hitting alt text and giving people another option to consume your course. Okay, so now that you can see it adds the alternative text there right at the bottom. So now we have our heading, our body text, and the image as well. Now we've talked about hiding icons that are not necessary to your content. They don't drive meaning. Adding alt text to images and things that you would like to give people who are not sighted a little bit of more context about what image is on the screen. And then also there is a new tool. If you go into View, Accessibility Checker, I have worked with it to make sure that all of these accessibility checker items have been resolved. And so let me show you the other course, because the accessibility checker is a really cool tool to see kind of what's outstanding and what you could be doing better. So originally I had 161 points of nonconformance, basically. So At level A, there were 159 issues found, and level A is really the basic level that you want to be adhering to no matter what. Double A is kind of that more advanced, and then triple A is like the highest standard possible that you can do within accessibility. And if I'm wrong on that, please correct me. So you can notice at the bottom here, you can fix in one click. There's only 3 things that you can fix in one click. 148 things that you can actually fix with AI. So this is an add-on. If you don't have the AI assistant, the accessibility options here are a great way, but I'm going to talk about that in just a second. And then 10 things that I might need to do manually. So if I go in here and fix with AI, so now I can see that there's not captions added on all of these. And here I can just go ahead and generate the captions directly from that accessibility checker, which is nice. It's going to still have me approve it to make sure that it's correct or accurate. And then I can do that here. So this is a nice way to kind of see everything without having to go and find specifically where things are located. And so it just did it automatically. And I noticed there's a lot of people who had access to this accessibility checker, started looking at it, and then they realized that the courses that they're currently building started pulling back thousands of problems with their accessibility. And so I think it can be a little bit overwhelming if you're not sure what you're looking at, but some of these things you can skip if you decide that you don't want to do it. But captions are something that I would always try to make sure that we're adding. Alt text is another one. So this is a great example of how all of these things do not need alt text. These are mostly decorative items, and I really would not want to include those in my accessibility tools. So here I would just uncheck that and then just continue on. So that is not relevant. The rectangle, I don't need that one for my accessibility tools. This is an image, so I would go ahead and generate alt text for that one. And it kind of gives you a little bit of information about it. And I also like that it gives you the standard and information on how to fix it, and even kind of like where to find this within Storyline. So overall, that's kind of focus order. There's kind of a lot of nuance to focus order, but I do really appreciate the accessibility checker, that it is a tool to kind of think about it at least. Now, there's another thing, kind of the final thing that I'm going to talk about within this course redesign, is that I developed a accessibility statement to be presented at the very beginning of the course. And one thing that I used, I learned this in that book club that I've been doing, but you can develop an accessibility statement directly from this website. It's w3.org, and you can just generate an accessibility statement. So you can go ahead and type in your organization, your website, and then the name of the tool or website that you're building, and then the level of standard that you followed. And then you can also identify if it's fully conformant, partially conformant, non-conformant, or not assessed. And even none. If you have taken no accessibility considerations, Sarah said this the other day in the group. She said that she heard it from somebody else, but I do think it's a great quote from whoever said it. Sharing what you've done or haven't done is a form of accessibility. And so just being able to tell people, hey, I have not vetted this course for accessibility at all. Here's a statement that says that. But if you do have questions, or if you need a different way to consume the content, maybe it's a PDF or a document type format, or maybe there's another resource that I can connect you with that can help consume this content in a different way, then you're giving them options to actually do that. So you can just preview and then download it directly, or copy the text. So this is not the entire statement. I just kind of fit what I thought would work well. So the conformance status, feedback, if you have any problems, if you needed to ask any questions, and then the date that this statement was created. So I think this is a great way. I have never honestly created an accessibility statement for any of the courses that I've ever done, but I think this is a really awesome way to kind of level set and tell people what you've done for accessibility considerations. And if they have problems or questions or need additional support or resources, that they have somewhere that they can contact. And then otherwise, I'm going to add my courses to the blog post. I have a bunch of links in there with all kinds of resources that I've shared throughout the week. And then I also really liked Susie's description here in the very beginning of the book, where she talks about how a lot of times accessibility can be a little bit intimidating, which is kind of what I said earlier. But she talks about progress over perfection, which is a common thing that we kind of know about. But when it comes to e-learning accessibility, she said it's better to try your best to make content accessible and risk the possibility of making mistakes than it is to abandon accessibility completely. So I love that quote. I think it was really a great quote. And then she also said that the judgment and sometimes negativity associated with applying accessibility standards can often lead to fear and reluctance to get engaged. And so I do feel like even by posting these videos this week, I was scared. I was nervous to post these videos because there's so many other accessibility experts who do it on their day-to-day basis and they do it so well. And I'm over here kind of trying to do my best at accessibility considerations and having an accessibility mindset. But just doing it and thinking about it is really step one to getting better and to becoming kind of that accessibility expert. So if you're feeling and I hope you're feeling some inspiration after this week from these different videos. And I have linked all the videos in my YouTube channel under an accessibility considerations playlist. So if you would like to share this with a friend or colleague, please feel free to do that and let me know if you have any feedback, questions, or tips that I can change and do differently in the future. Thanks so much.